Ronwell Nogales with the $5. I'm glad that Mitch McConnell is finally retiring this year. I'd love to see Thomas Massie run for the U.S. Senate to take Mitch McConnell's seat in 2026. Well, it's funny, Ronwell, that you bring up Thomas Massie.
Well, and shout out, he was on with Judge Napolitano the other day, and it was really good. And Judge Nap flat out asked him about this.
He's one of a kind. He's just one of a kind. I absolutely 1000% think he's gonna go for it. He knows his political capital is as high as can possibly be. He is the most, outside of probably Bernie Sanders, even still, is probably the most liked and respected politician on Capitol Hill. Yeah. And Massie, time and again, says, "Do not call me a politician." Respect. So when they're trying to,
I appreciate that.
When the GOP is trying to pass a budget and Massie, in true libertarian fashion, says this bill is going to blow a hole so deep into our deficit. Remember, it's not debt that matters, it's deficit that matters. And so in this instance, knowing that the intention of the GOP, which has never changed, which is to take certain monies away from people who need it and give money to people who don't need it. And so Massie very eloquently pointed this out outside the halls of the House yesterday.
Yeah. Can you just talk to no? Is there anything?
They convinced me in there. I'm a no.
Is there anything?
Look what, let me, their own numbers. If the Republican plan passes under the rosiest assumptions, which aren't even true, we're going to add $328 billion to the deficit this year. We're going to add $295 billion to the deficit the year after that, and $242 billion to the deficit after that, under the rosiest assumptions. Why would I?
So here's something that people in the MMT crowd need to understand, and this is where I actually side with Massie on this point. If you're putting a budget together, let's say that you have X amount on one side, X amount on the other side that you have to account for. So let's say that we're going to spend and then we're going to tax. You know, they say it's tax and spend. No, it's spend and tax. That's what it really should be called, Jen. I'm sure you would agree with that.
Well, I just, again, and I wasn't going to get into it with Butch because and in reality, when he's talking about running for governor, and you are talking about tax dollars. So it's kind of like, it's not worth getting into it. But this is the kind of stuff that really pisses me off, because I hear debt, deficit. And at the end of the day, it's just sort of this, it's austerity politics. Well, so I'm not supportive of the entire premise of this, even though I prefer his level of candor.
Well, what I think Massie is getting at, which I do agree with, is this idea of, if your intention is to push through massive tax cuts for the very richest people in the country, and the way that you're going to maneuver that money is by basically screwing over working people who cannot afford to do this. So you basically just create money out of thin air and you continue to devalue your own currency, because it's not like we are not living in the Gilded Age where the greatest wealth gap already
But
exists.
I'd rather him say it like that, and that's not what he said. What he said was wah, 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 deficit, wah, wah, wah. Right?
Well,
that's not the same thing as the explanation as to, yeah, I'm not with tax cuts for the rich and, you know, whatever it was. That's what I'm saying.
Well, that's where I've always said that the intersection between progressives and libertarians is actually very real. And Massie is a real libertarian. Like, he actually believes in the principles of what that ideology is supposed to be about. Some very good, some not so good. It all depends on where you land. Now, when it comes to spend and tax, there's no question that Massie does subscribe to forms of austerity. There's no question that he does. However, the reason why Massie is somebody that you can engage with is because he doesn't believe in the corporatocracy. That he doesn't believe in. He believes in the free market. And whatever the fuck it is that they're trying to sell on Capitol Hill is not a free market. And he's 100% correct about that.
I vote for that.
So are you solidly a no?
Yeah, they convinced me. I was a lean no until this meeting. Now I'm a no.
This no confirmed.
This is
you
a
were
no.
Why? Why?
They're
What-
talking points. Look, these are not something I made up. This is the leadership's talking points. It adds $328 billion to the deficit. It adds $295 billion to the deficit the year after that. The only way they get to this magic thing where it's not going to kill our country is 5 years from now, they imagine that 2.5% growth accumulates, and that even right here they say they're going to cap discretionary spending. You think we're going to cap discretionary spending and then spend at the rate of inflation after that? That has never happened. So their assumptions are wrong, but even if you take their assumptions at face value, they told us in there they're going to increase the deficit in 2025 by $328 billion. And I've been here long enough. I've been here 12 years, so I've seen a 10-year plan or two come all the way to 10 years. Under Boehner, we had these 10-year plans. Under Ryan, we had these 10-year plans. Anything past the third year never happens. Thanks.
And he, because he's not bought by corporate special interests, unlike 98% of the people elected on Capitol Hill, he is willing to talk to the media about these things. Whereas
Yes, he has nothing to hide. He has no reason. That's the beauty of not being a lying piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
You could speak freely.
That's why Medea Benjamin never has to confront Thomas Massie, unlike the other scumbags.
Why would she? No.
No, exactly. In fact, AIPAC Tracker is now making graphics of the representatives who do not take any money from AIPAC. And
Good.
of course, the first two that they led off with were Thomas Massie and Ilhan Omar. And so that really should tell you all you need to know, because Ilhan Omar and Thomas Massie are two very different people in politics.
And both very effective and very effective.
Correct. And they're not corrupt.
Yeah.
And that to me is really what matters